This episode's brought to you by Notorious Fire Company. Firefighter owned and operated, Notorious Fire Company manufactures and creates quirky and unique items for the fire service. Whether it's your stainless steel water bottles, tumblers, 4-in-1 koozies, you can decorate your emotional support water bottle with more than 100 different designs they offer so very much. From apparel to swag to stickers, they got you covered. Check them out at notoriousfire.com. That's NOTORIOUS, notoriousfire.com. And check them out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Notorious Fire. And this month with the podcast, if you use coupon code Fire Radio June 2023, that is Fire Radio June 2023, you'll get free shipping on all orders within the U.S. So check them out, notoriousfire.com. Lenny and the crew, they're making great stuff, and I have to tell you, with the summer upon us, the sticker packs are out of control. You got everything from Star Wars to pinups and everything in between. Slap them on your beer fridges, your coolers, and your tumblers, and celebrate the summer in style with Notorious Fire. A good supporter and longtime friend. We're happy to have him on the podcast with us. Check him out, notoriousfire.com, and coupon code FIRERADIO June 2023 for free shipping all across the U.S. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio, back on the podcast today. A very special guest, the gentleman that, well, his name precedes him. I knew of this gentleman long before I got the chance to shake his hand and look up at him and into his eyes. Captain Mike Dugan. 45 years in the fire service, give or take, 27 years, retired out of the FDNY, served in some of the busiest truck companies across the city in a couple different boroughs, and we'll get into that. Mike is a softy with an iron fist, and that's my description of you, Cap. And, well, I want to get into that too, but thank you. Thank you this morning for joining me on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you for having me, brother.
It's fun. I am one of the luckiest guys in the fire service. At least I like to think so. Over the last few years with National Fire Radio, getting to meet and then become friends and brothers with guys like yourself and many others that I just cherish our relationships. And, for me, you have been quite instrumental in somebody that I admire and look up to, only because you carry yourself with such a gentleman-esque take, meaning you are a complete gentleman. And when I said before in the intro about softy with an iron fist, you are you're not afraid to shed a tear. You're not afraid to give a hug, but man, can you also come down with an iron fist if need be. And I think that is such an important characteristic of being a man and a gentleman. And I just admire that in you. And knowing a lot of the stories of your career and only knowing a few, just scratching the surface, and it's such a decorated career that you've had, man, I'm just honored to have you on the show today, and just to be a brother and a friend. And I appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's do this. I want to hop in. You've had quite the colorful career in New York City. I know you started as a volunteer out in Long Island. You live out in Long Island. So those were your early days. And when you got hired, you went to Ladder 137. Now,
correct.
That's not a company you often hear about, and so on. So I'm curious how the process went, how you ended up at 137 out of the academy, and maybe you could just speak to that a little bit, and maybe how you ended up transferring as a probie, I believe, and eventually transferring as a probie to 43 truck, or Ladder 43 in Spanish Harlem, which is a little bit different of a neighborhood. So how did that all play out for you?
Well, when I graduated the academy in 85, my class sent 11 of us to the battalion on the beach, which is Rockaway Beach.
Got it.
Where Ladder 137 is. We were to kill overtime because the guys were making too much money down there.
Got it.
The firehouse I went to was Ladder 137. Now, I was my class valedictorian, and I thought I had a hook. I thought I had a rabbi pulling a string for me, and I was going to go someplace in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. and I went to ladder 137, which was one of the slower companies in the city.
So top of
And
your class, and you get
yep,
you get assigned to 137. Where typically, if correct me if I'm wrong, but typically the top of the class they get bid on, or they get to go to usually some pretty good houses.
yes,
Yeah.
but my probie class
Yep.
had um, the guys in my probie class had fathers on the job, uncles on the jobs,
Yep.
family on the job.
Right.
And I had in my class 4 super chiefs' sons
Uh.
who were 2 stars or above, their sons. And, all of the spots got filled.
Yes.
So I ended up going to this place, and their nickname when I was there was the Washed Up Brothers on the Beach.
Oh
Now,
my gosh.
these were great, great, great firemen
Yeah.
who had done their time in great companies in New York City. Guys who worked in Ladder 4 with Bobby Farrell, guys who worked in 280, 132, 234, 290, great companies all over the city. And they were getting ready to retire.
Yes.
So it was a retirement home. And in the engine, 268, the junior man used to get the nozzle. And I remember one night, the junior man had 29 years, the nozzle man, and it was a 4-man engine, a 4-man engine. The back step had 140 something years of service.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was crazy. It was
Yeah.
crazy. And they were good guys.
Sure.
But they had done, they
Yeah,
had done
tired.
probies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were just biding their time.
So they must have loved when you guys came charging through the door.
Oh, yeah. And, we have drill. And very honestly, the drills in that firehouse were by the book. At 2 to 3, the lieutenant sat down and read from the drill manual.
Right.
And I am a gung-ho, want to be doing fire duty, want to go do this stuff. And this guy is reading, and very honestly, I won't give you his name because I don't want to be disrespectful, but he had a monotone voice. He was like Bob Ross. He could put more firemen to sleep. And when you force the door,
Yeah.
the fork of the Halligan will point towards you will go above or below the lock. And I'm sitting there with everything I have trying to stay awake, standing up in the kitchen, and he's just reading to us. And then he'd pass the book and say, okay, you read a couple of pages. You read a couple of pages.
And that was training.
That was training.
Yeah.
That was training.
And for you to be a probie, you don't know. I mean, other than the exposure you've gotten at the Rock, you don't know what you're like, wow, is this what it's about? Like, is this how we do it? Right? Because that's your first stint, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So at what point then did you come to realize, like, wait a minute, I think there's more to this job?
There were a couple of good guys there that were down on the beach for whatever personal reasons, childcare issues, divorce issues, whatever else. And a couple of them told me, you don't belong here. You don't belong here. Get out. So I tried to put a paper in, a request for transfer as a probie.
Yeah.
And the division commander would not let it go through.
It's kind of not the norm, right?
Not the norm for a probie to want to get out of a place.
Exactly.
But I they offered to move me to another company on the beach, which was busier.
Yeah.
But they were like, I don't know. So I was there, and one of my friends was a guy by the name of John Donnelly, and we used to work together a lot. We were in the same groups, and we went to the same box, this old Irish bar on the beach on 116th Street called, on 99th Street called Dingy Dan's.
Okay.
Okay. And we went there every morning.
It's my kind of place. I could just tell already.
Right. Like for a week.
Yeah.
For a week for nothing. And then the morning I'm down on the watch, and we get the box, and I open up the doors, and the smoke blows in the fire. I'm like, oh, yeah. So we go there. It's a third or a fourth alarm, but there's a captain there who's talking to all these deputy chiefs. And I go to my friend John Donnelly. Who's that? And he goes, that's Richie Fanning. He's the commissioner's executive officer. He's my neighbor and good friend. I said, and I'm trying to get out of here. He goes,
Yeah.
oh, shit. I never even thought about it. And he goes, okay. So I got married and I on May 31st, 1986. And I am on my honeymoon. And I get home and the tape machine on my old answering machine with the cassette is full of messages. Well, I got transferred. So I had to call this guy, okay, Richie Fanning.
Yeah.
And I said, where am I going? And he goes, you're going to 43 truck. And I was like, where is that?
That's fantastic.
He goes, Spanish Harlem. I said, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. I
Yep.
didn't have a paper in. And he goes, that's where you're going. I was the only fourth grade fireman on the order transferred, and I was transferred to 43 truck. So I go into 43 truck, and I think I'm doing everything the way I am. I'm sitting in the kitchen as a probie having coffee with the guys in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how they did it. Okay. So finally, the senior man looks at me and says, could you come here with me for a minute? Sure. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. What do you want me to do? He goes, you don't know? I said, no. And he goes,
Wow.
okay, well, here's what you do. And 43 Truck had a wonderful tradition that I loved. The junior man wrote the riding list and presented it to the officer
Okay.
because they knew who was who. And they knew who was going, whose turn it was to go on the detail and who was going there and what was going on. And we had, seated chauffeurs, they drove. We had an old guy by the name of Mr. T, Jimmy Tierney, who took the OV, and I don't ride backwards.
Got it.
Okay, because the OV rode backwards except when Tierney was working. And so he said, listen, these tools, they get washed every morning by you. You can pour yourself a cup of coffee, but you've got to go out and clean up these tools. Oh, okay. I never knew. So I started cleaning up the tools. I started doing my job.
Yeah.
And I did my job. And they taught me how to be a fireman. They taught me what to do, what was required of me. And it was eye-opening to see guys who wanted to be into the job and everything else. And I worked with some phenomenal firemen.
Did you feel like that was the place? Like, this is where I want to be. Now that I understand what my job is as a probie, right, and so on, is that where you really started to go, man, this is what I was hoping this job was about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was what I wanted, where I wanted, guys I wanted to work with, people who I admired, and people who were willing to train me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they took the time with me, and they did it. And I worked with great guys.
What did Spanish Harlem look like in 1985?
I got there in 86.
86.
So
Okay.
in 86, but it was Spanish Harlem. I mean, there were blocks and areas that were vacant buildings that had been vacant for 15, 20 years.
Right. I mean, this area was decimated by, the glory days, no?
Yeah. There were a lot of vacant buildings. There was a lot of occupied work.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of work. There
Yeah.
were a lot of runs, and there was a lot of fights.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could go to work at any given time.
Right.
And we went out all the time. And I mean, the drills, it wasn't sitting in the kitchen looking at the book. It wasn't sitting. We're going out into the streets.
You weren't reading the manual?
No, we were living the manual.
Yeah, exactly.
We would go to the roof of vacant buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where you cut. Here's what you want to look for. Okay. And I remember working with guys who were great guys. One of the guys I worked with was an African-American firefighter by the name of Kirk Lester, who was one of the best people I ever worked with.
I've heard you mention his name before. Yeah.
Oh, he was great people.
Yeah.
But one of the things he told me is, listen, the junior guy a lot of times gets the roof. And he goes, if you've got the roof, don't take the skylight unless you have to. Because if you take the skylight and let the weather into the building, you create another vacant building in Harlem, and we don't need that. So don't be indiscriminate with your work. Do it when you need to.
Be intentional.
Be intentional
Yeah.
and be professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
I have
and,
to, yeah, go ahead.
And we used to go and we used to just drill all the time.
Is that when you realized training was important to you? Because I know how today training is super important to you, and you travel to lecture, you travel to do hands-on still, and so on. So, I mean, training has become a big part of who you are today, Mike Dugan. But back in '86, on the streets of Spanish Harlem, did you start to understand and realize the importance of training then?
Absolutely, because training makes you a better fireman.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it from different paradigms, from different people's eyes, how this guy sees it, how this guy sees it. And it also, that was where I learned to critique a job. We used to go back to the same buildings all the time after a fire, and people would say, "You firemen are back again?" We would break into a boarded up apartment to go in and go over the layout, where the guys went, who went where, who did what, where was the roof man, where was the OV, who dropped down, what were the communications, and all of these things. And you put these things in your bank, and it made you better at what you did.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more, Cap. I think we don't do enough of that anymore, and I think that's some of the very best training you can get is that walkthrough after the fire with your company. There's so much critical information that comes out of that.
And very honestly, I mean, I always joke, if I had $1 for every mistake I made at a fire,
sure,
I'd be sitting on my own private island in the Bahamas. Okay, I'd be next to Richard Branson.
Yeah,
but very honestly, that's where you learn.
Yeah,
you know, which fire escape did you take? Oh, I went to this one, but that one, even though it's closer to the fire department, it doesn't get you into the fire department. Really, I would have made the same exact mistake. Okay, now we know. Now we know how things are going. So it's so important that we go and review. And listen, everybody makes a judgment at a fire, and I don't care who you are. If you make a judgment based on your best knowledge at that time and it's wrong, as the officer, I'll back you 110%.
Yeah.
Because you made it based on, if you make a stupid decision or don't bring a tool, then I'll have a talk with you. But if you make a decision based on what you see and what you perceived, there is nothing wrong with that, because I would rather have a fireman who tried and made a mistake than stands at the base of the building looking at it for a half an hour trying to figure out what's going on. By the time he figures out what he's doing, the building is in ashes.
Yeah, we got to make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So your stint, yeah, go ahead, please.
And live by them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's super important too, Mike, and you hit on that. And it's this, maybe this older school style of holding each other accountable, which shouldn't be older school, but it is, because our leadership and management styles have changed over the years to not this street credit level of, accountability that I think we need now more than ever. But here's the thing, like bosses, if your people are making decisions based upon real-time information in front of them, and maybe it didn't work out to be the best decision, but they can back up their reason why they did it and why they did what they did, as a manager, you can't fault them for that. But what you can do is tutor them on maybe looking at more of a bigger picture, or taking door number 2, or, so on. But I think it's important to allow your people to make decisions and make mistakes, because those mistakes will correct over time.
100% agree.
Yeah, it's important.
Because if we don't trust them,
yeah, that's right,
to make the decision and make the mistake, we're going to make every decision on the fire ground.
That's right.
And I'm never going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So that stint in Ladder 43 had to be super impressionable from your Pro B years up through as a firefighter, right?
Yep.
And then you find yourself promoting to Ladder 42 in the South Bronx. So different zip code, but not too far away, correct?
not too far away, but I went other places first
Okay.
before that.
All right.
I ended up getting promoted at top of my class and top of my list, my
Yes.
lieutenant's list.
Nice.
In 94, I got promoted to lieutenant, January 29th. And I ended up going immediately UFO until further orders to engine 207 on Tillery Street in Brooklyn,
Oh,
the Maxi water
that's the big
unit.
house there.
Right.
Yeah.
The old super pumper.
Yes.
Yes.
So they put you in an engine?
They put me in an engine and in 207 as punishment.
Maybe we'll leave it right there.
No, I can tell the story.
Well, feel free.
I got jammed up. I made my rescue. I made a roof rope rescue in 43 truck.
Okay. Is that where you got the James Gordon Bennet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I got the Bennet for that.
All right, we're going to talk about that later. So bookmark that for later. Go ahead.
I made that rescue, and I got the Daily News Hero of the Month for that rescue.
Right.
And then I got the Daily News Hero of the Year for that rescue. But when I showed up for the ceremony, according to the chief at the time, my mustache, which was bright red when I was younger, made U-turns on my face. My rescue made page 14 of the Daily News. My mustache made page 7. That I was an embarrassment to the department because of my mustache.
Wow.
So I had to shave my mustache. And then in February of 93, we had and I shaved my mustache after I made my rescue.
Yes.
And then nobody else was ordered to shave.
Got it.
So I grew it back. And then I end up at the first bombing of the World Trade Center, February 26, 1993. Yes. I drove there, and we ended up on the evening news, on World News Tonight. Yes. My parents saw me in Florida, and I had the same mustache.
Yes.
So when I got promoted, I went to 207 UFO, and I was told, "Do you get the message now?" So I got the message.
Yep, loud and clear.
So I ended up down there for a little while in 207, and then they moved me. My division commander was a good guy, and he moved me to a truck company. So I was in ladder 119 for 9 months, and then I finally got transferred up to Harlem, the 6th Division, which was Harlem and the Bronx.
Right.
And I was UFO in ladder 28, and I thought I had a shot at that spot.
Yeah, it's a good truck.
Good truck, the Harlem Hilton. Yep. And a guy left 42 to go to 28, so I slid right over into a 42 truck, and I became a lieutenant 42 truck.
Nice.
So, yep. So it was a lot of fun. 42 truck was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. So much in that last 3 minutes to unpack. I mean, that's a career's worth for most people, and that was only a short couple of years for you. But let's talk about a couple of things. One, you go back a little bit, but you mentioned the rope rescue, the roof rescue, right? So you were recognized with the James Gordon Bennet Award on that one. And that is I guess not the highest. The highest is the Archer Award, correct? The Harry M. Archer.
The Archer is the highest.
Correct.
The Bennet is given every year.
Right.
And every third year.
Yes.
They take the top Bennet and give him the Archer.
Yeah. Okay. So that roof rope rescue, I mean, how can you give me a little background on it? How it went down? I mean, it's incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Sure. It was December 23rd. And I was, we were at that time, we were in a 24 group chart. The contract had changed and everything else. And we were getting sent out of our firehouse. We were getting detailed a lot.
Right.
And I had gotten detailed to another company to drive, because I was a chauffeur at the time.
Got it.
So I went down to drive someplace else, and I'm coming back to the firehouse, and I'm bringing my gear in and everything else. And one of the guys looks at me and says, where are you coming from? And I said, oh, I was down driving. I think it was Ladder 16 today. I was detailed down to 16 truck. And he goes, are you available? And I said, yeah. He goes, there's a screw up in the manpower. They didn't realize that, somebody was off. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here. I mean, and it's 15 hours overtime right before Christmas. I'll take it. It'll help pay the Christmas bills.
Sure. Yeah.
So I said, okay. And the guy who was working, who was one of the senior men, not the chauffeur, came over and said to me, well, we thought we were getting a guy from another company. And so we gave him the roof. You're the senior guy on the back step, not the chauffeur, but we've already set up the riding list. Would you mind taking the roof? And I'm like, well, it's not the way it goes, but I'm on overtime. I'm like, yeah, I'll take the roof. Sure. And he goes, okay. And by the way, thank God you're here because you're going to be the cook tonight because none of us know how to cook.
The important job. Are you kidding?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's get on the rig. So we get on the rig and we have a job around the corner on Park Avenue and 103rd Street. And it's a fire on the third floor, and it's a rocking job. And it's a big renovated building. So I got the roof, I go up the adjoining, and I get up to the roof, and I put my rope down, and I look over the back, and there's a guy out the window on the 5th floor, hanging out the window on the windowsill. And I'm like, I got a guy trapped in the back. I'm going to need help. So I go pop the bulkhead door to try to relieve the smoke coming out because there's smoke coming out over his head.
Right.
And I try to relieve the smoke and there's fire coming up and everything else. And then I say, listen, I see the people, the civilians up on the roof, and they start to touch my rope. And I'm like screaming at them, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Don't touch that. Because they were going to lower it over the roof to the sky. And I go over and a couple of guys from 26 truck show up. They were the second through truck. And Billy McCann lowers me. And I'm sorry, John McCann and Billy Donahue sits on an angle because from the substantial object, there's like a 45-degree angle to where we've got to go off the roof to get this guy. So Billy Donahue sits on the roof and we run the rope through his personal harness,
right?
And that he becomes like part of the substantial object on the roof. So I go down.
It should be said, you're no little guy, Cap.
No.
So for you going over the edge, these guys had to be eyes wide open.
Oh yeah. And then I get down there, and the guy jumps at me.
Oh wow!
I catch him.
Yeah.
I catch him in my arms, and I got him like this.
Yeah.
And then we got to kind of go past the fire and go down, and they lower me down. And in the back, it's a 6-story building, but in the back, it's a 7-story because it's got a rear yard.
Yep.
And we run out of rope.
Oh.
So I'm hanging there, and finally a guy comes, and he kind of lifts me up and helps them take enough strain off the rope to untie it to get down.
So they lowered you to the ground or tried to. You didn't get pulled in another window. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Got lowered to the ground. And then we go out front and they put me into an ambulance. And I'm sitting in an ambulance and I'm shaking. Like the adrenaline is pumping. I'm shaking. And the medic looks at me and says, I'm going to try to take a blood gas. Relax. And I look at him and excuse my expression, but I say, I am effing relaxed. And he goes, we'll try that later. And then I see this guy come out with his wife, and he's the tenant of the apartment. And it was right around Christmas time, and he was like a street vendor, and he had stuff in the apartment.
Yeah.
This guy is burnt up.
Wow.
Burnt up. His 2 kids died in the fire.
Oh, boy.
And I look at this guy, and I look at the medic, and I go, I'm getting out of this ambulance. I'll sit on the stoop, take care of him.
Yeah.
Because this guy's hands, there's His skin is coming off his face from trying to get down the hallway to get his kids. I mean, uh, I can't imagine. I
No.
can't imagine.
Nope.
And so I get out of the ambulance, and the guy goes, "No, no, no, you're first." I said, "No, absolutely, take care of him." So they take care of him, and then they take me to the hospital, and I go down, and it's just, like I'm keyed up, and my lower back is killing me because I caught this guy
Yeah.
being on a heart, it was on
Hmm.
a bone on bite. So come down, and I'll never forget, the medic came by to find me, and he said, "Listen, I just want to tell you, that's the most Christian thing I've ever seen anybody do, getting out of that ambulance for that father. Thank you." And that made my whole day.
Of
That
course.
made my day.
But then,
So,
yeah, go ahead, please.
but that's the story of the James Gordon Bennet.
Yeah. But I mean, what I was going to say, I mean, it's an incredible feat in and of itself, right? And all of it that goes into the process, and the guys that lowered you, and so on, right? But the humility that you have, and the compassion you have for the people that you serve. I mean, for you to, step aside, and for the medic to make a comment like that, that truly just speaks to your makeup, though. I mean, everything that I know about you, and the many times that we've shared some laughs, and some storytelling over the last few years, I've just come to know you as a very humble gentleman who loves to talk about the guys that have come before you. And you love, in fact, to talk about the generation that's coming up behind you. When I listened to your Lifetime Achievement Award from Fire Engineering, the Tom Brennan Lifetime Achievement Award, I was in the crowd that day at FDIC, and I watched, with very proud to call you a brother and friend, to watch you receive that. And you said in it, "I've done my," basically, I'm summarizing, but you said, "I've carried the torch. Now it's time for the next generation to pick that torch up and go. Fall in love with his job, take accountability, and accept responsibility for it. And it's your turn, so that you can be on this stage in years to come." So you are very much endorsing the betterment of this job and the humility that comes with it. Where does that come from for you?
It's just because without the brothers and sisters, without the team, we're
Yeah.
nothing. We're nothing. Okay. I couldn't have done that roof rope rescue without the training.
Yeah.
And the training goes back to every guy that was ever in a rope training with us, every guy that was ever on the roof when we practiced. And very honestly, my company, we drilled on that all the time. 43 truck drilled on that all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we were on the rig, and on the rig was Jimmy Sears, who made a roof rope rescue and rescued a captain who was trapped at a job. Jimmy Steele, who rescued a woman out of a bathroom window, who was covered with paint, and he rescued her, and me. And we were all on the rig together.
Wow.
Um, because we all believed in that. We believed in each other. We believed in it's a team. And if we don't, then we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have anything without each other, right? I mean, that's,
Exactly. It's the
yeah.
team. It's the firehouse.
Yes.
And, I don't care if you're in the places like I started out, the ladder 137. You have to go and practice. You have to do it. If you do it by yourself, you have to read something, whether it's an article, whether it's a book, whether it's a NIOSH report, something to be prepared to do the job.
Yeah.
Okay. And if everyone doesn't do their tasks, their job, I always said as an officer, the most important communication I ever get is you telling me that something I assigned you to do, you can't do for whatever reason. Because if I tell you, Jeremy, get to the roof and open a bulkhead, I expect that done.
Sure.
Period. End of story.
Yes.
And if you get up there and you can't open the bulkhead because the roof there's no roofing material on it, there's no sheathing on the roof, or the roof is burnt through, I want to know about it. I mean, I had one of my guys call me one time at a pretty good job when I was a captain, and he says, 123 roof to 123. Hey, Cap, I threw the life saving rope on the roof. and the roof moved because it was an isolated building.
Right.
And I'm like, don't go on the roof.
Yeah.
And I hear the chief, back down the ladder, do not go on the roof. He automatically agreed. But, tell me, okay, now I know the roof's not getting opened. I know you're not
Yeah,
getting the bulkhead.
for sure.
So I know these things. So think about these things. Now, of course, the brothers, they took this the life-saving rope and the life belt that was around the bag. They took that and made a nice plaque for him that it was all melted
You knew
together
that was
in one
coming.
piece.
Yeah.
Oh, you knew that was coming.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love that, though, because there's a level of expectation then, right? You as a boss in 123, and I'm sure you did it in 42, and I'm sure it was ingrained in you in 43 and before that, and the companies in between all that, right? Like, there's a level of expectation that I don't really want to hear from you unless you can't do your job, right? Because the expectation is you're doing your job. And if your job is to make that roof, then go make that roof. And I only need to know that you couldn't get to the roof or something's hampering you in your abilities to do so, because that changes the outcome of what my expectation is.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We need more of that. We need
Yeah,
more.
we do.
We need more of that. And it's, I think it's, I don't know. I don't know how to even form that conversation. I talk about it a lot, but I think we need more than that. I think we need to set our people up for success with giving them what the expectation is. And there should be no gray in the expectation other than if you can't perform it due to extenuating circumstances.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a roofman one time, and I'll tell you this story because I think it's hysterical.
Please.
I was a roofman in 43 truck, and I went up onto the roof, and it was an isolated building, and we had a pretty good food on the stove. Okay. So the building was full of smoke. So I go up the aerial and I hop off the roof and I step in dog poop. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And I was back in the day, I was in just blue jeans and
Right.
truck shoes
Right.
because it was a food on the stove.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I get bit by a German Shepherd,
Oh, shit.
and he takes a chunk out of the back of my leg. And I see him go down the bulkhead and into the apartment on the top floor. So I call the boss and I'm like, hey, listen, boss, just for your information, I just got bit by a dog up on the roof. And so he comes and the boss comes and we go down, we knock on the door, they don't come to the door, we knock on the door, they don't come. And I saw the dog go in the apartment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, son of a gun. And I'm bleeding, I think I got a stitch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it wasn't bad, but I'm,
Right.
kind of worried, like, what's going on here? Well, they go into the apartment, they get the cops come in. And again, thought this turns into a huge ordeal because the people won't give the dog up. So they take the people out in handcuffs. They go in, and my boss looks at me and he goes, hey, listen, I'm just going to tell you, if this thing comes out as a mini poodle or small schnauzer, you're going to have to put your paper in. You're going to have to transfer.
I love that.
And the cops come, and the license the people have on the dog is for stolen from another dog on the Upper East Side. And it turns out that the dog, they ended up darting. The ESU cops darted the dog and brought it out to see if it had rabies.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, my expectation was to get the roof.
Yes.
And, you got to do it.
Yes.
And then that's what the expectation. Okay, you got bit by this dog. This better be a pretty good sized dog.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I hit that thing in the head with a Halligan. And I knew it was a shepherd of nails.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Well, getting the job done, plain and simple.
Yep.
And that's your job. So
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about being a boss, right? So, your years bouncing around a little bit, then you ended up at 42, and then being a captain of 123, which is Crown Heights, which is a busy shop, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They were busy. Yep.
What did you enjoy? Did you enjoy being a company officer? I mean,
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, there's a difference, too.
Okay.
And I got to be, there's a difference between a lieutenant and a captain.
Yes.
As far as a lieutenant, you're in charge of the shift.
Right.
A captain, you're in charge of the firehouse.
Yes.
You're a company in that firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a lieutenant, you can say, listen, we're not doing this on my shift. or you can say, this is what it is on my shift. As a captain, you were saying, we're not doing this in my company. Um, I followed a great captain when I was a captain, and there was, they put together all of the stuff for the probies. And it's something that I highly believe in. If you get new people in the fire service, in your company, in your firehouse, you have to tell them what you expect of them.
Yes.
The fire service has unwritten rules and regulations and laws that we expect these people to know how to follow, but we don't tell them what they are. Okay. Well, we told them, we listed it, and this was done before me, and I just picked up the thing. Okay. You're working a 9 by 6 store. You have to be here by 8 o'clock. You are to relieve the details, somebody, a guest for another firehouse
Right.
first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are to get your gear out, make coffee, start doing your job, cleaning up the firehouse, cleaning up the kitchen, whatever it is. We listed everything you had to do that day, that the tools had to be cleaned and washed, what you have to do on a night tour, what you can do. You have to do this. You have to help with the meal. You have to be the first up from the kitchen table. Now, that's one that I had a little bit of a problem with because, again, in the advent of cell phones, we don't spend the time talking to each other like we used to.
Yeah.
So I used to tell guys, you can't get up until we are done. Let's everybody finishes their meal, because the guys used to shovel it in and then get up to start cleaning the pots. Wait, we have to give ourselves 5 or 10 minutes to talk, to become that family, to make that family time together. Okay, let's do some fun stuff in the kitchen. And, that's the whole thing. So I think being a boss is great because the other thing is you train people to take your place. Okay, there are guys who were firemen for me who are now deputy chiefs in the FDNY.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were motivated, great individuals, and they went up the ranks. They're changing the department. Okay, I love people who do more. Every firehouse should be a stepping stone for greater things, for better things. Okay. What are you going to do? You're going to go to a special operations command. Are you going to go to promote? You're going to study. You're going to get better. What are you going to do? Okay. To make this department, this job better. And everywhere you go, people will say, where'd you come from? And you go, oh, ladder 123. Oh, okay. I know that shop. Good shop. Okay.
Right.
And your name goes with you. I remember one time as a young lieutenant, I was detailed to Staten Island and I had a 43 truck jacket on. And I was in a rural part of Staten Island. And the guy, it was the first time I had ever seen the old hydroram, the pump hydroram
Right.
on the officer's front seat of the rig. And he goes, because we're alone for 5 to 6 minutes before we get any backup.
Right.
So they have the hydroram so you can force the door. But the guy said to me, don't go too far because you're by yourself. I see you're from a great company,
Yeah.
but don't go too far because you are by yourself. So again, we see that our reputation, our companies, our departments precede us. Everybody knows where you work. We used to say in the FDNY, okay, the company number is on the door, and on that same door is your name if you work there. So you are responsible for that company's their reputation because of who you are.
Right. Got you. I'm just looking right now. As the rescue truck from a neighboring town just flies by my house, looks like there might be a job one town over. Anyway, sorry, Mike. Listen, character is everything, right? I mean, character, it's the only thing that you get to take with you, and you got to make a name for yourself. And I couldn't agree with you more because it's not just your own character, but it's your company, your department, and all of that gets carried through, and it matters.
And very honestly, character and ethics, okay, integrity.
Yes.
These words matter, okay? I always used to say, okay, there is a price that everybody is willing to accept. Okay, there is a price.
Yes.
And I don't care who you are, there is a price. Okay, but what that price is varies. And I remember one time working when a guy from 28 Truck was getting the James Gordon Bennet. John Duddy was getting the James Gordon Bennet medal from 28 Truck. I was working in 28 Truck, and we had a fire, and I had all guests. The driver was a guest. All of the guys on the back step were a guest, and because I was in the house UFO until further orders, I wasn't assigned, so I was a guest. So I had this company of all guests, and we had a job, and we were first through with the job, but we got in second to, because the guy driving had a problem getting the rig out of the air brakes off the rig. He couldn't get it running. We got there,
Yeah.
and the second through truck looked at me and he said, "Hey, Mike, you guys here?" And I said, "Yep, they're here." And he says, "Okay, we're going to go to our assigned location, the floor above." And my guys were still coming up the stairs, but I'm like, "We got this. This is ours." And that was the way it worked in Harlem.
Right.
And we went into this apartment, and it was a drug den. And we're in there, and there is a suitcase full of marijuana. There are shipping containers, the old cardboard circular containers that
Right.
you should ship, full of pot. There's money everywhere. After we're cleaning up, we're overhauling after the job, and we throw a box spring out the window. It hits the street in Harlem and pops, and hundreds go flying. It was a riot.
Yeah, I bet.
We have a gun in the apartment. We cleared a gun because I was a former cop and I knew guns. I cleared the gun, put it down, left it there, told them I cleared it. And then I found a stack of hundreds, and it was probably an inch and a half,
Yeah.
maybe 2 inches,
Sure.
rolled up hundreds. And I walk up to a cop and I go, "Here you go, bro." And he looks at me, and I'm quoting. He goes, "With all of them goddamn pockets, you're giving this to me?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Yep." Because even though I could have used that money
Sure.
because I was just bought my house and everything else, I'm like, nope. Because if I take that, I'm one of them. And I'll always have to look in the mirror to see if they're coming after me for taking that. Because I have to be honest to me. My integrity, there is a price. I haven't seen anybody who's willing to pay the price yet for my integrity. Okay. But there is a price, but it's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's the great thing about the fire service. Okay. Nobody can take it from you. You have to be willing to give it away.
Wow. It's such a powerful message right there, because I think that, even on a large scale, say something like that, to being put in in a situation where you could be tempted, to a small everyday little thing that you might sacrifice your own integrity or values for because it might make something a little bit easier, or you feel it's the right answer to give somebody when you should tell them the truth. Like, those are those things that add up, though, and for you to share that story, I mean, that's powerful. And I appreciate that, because I think we're losing track of integrity and character. And I think people are willing to sacrifice themselves for a quick fix or an easy score, if you will. And I appreciate you sharing that, because at the end of the day, and I wrote it down, it says, if I take that, I'm now one of them. And that's strong, Mike. That's really strong. I appreciate you. Yeah.
But it's the truth.
Yes, 100%.
You have to be able to put your head on your pillow and live with yourself.
Yeah.
And, I got that. I grew up with that Irish Catholic mother sitting on my shoulder telling me, this is the right thing. This is the right thing to do. Do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's a great message, and it's still it needs to be more prevalent now than ever. And thank you for sharing that story. That's great. Let me ask you this, segueing a little bit, because I don't want to keep you all morning here, but let's talk a little bit about your career. I mean, it's quite colorful, right? 27 years in the FDNY, some real busy houses, some busy shops. You've been to a lot of fires. You've been to a lot of type of work. You're talking 93 World Trade Center bombing, which you made the world news, right?
Yep.
2001, September 11th, 2001. You were
Mhm.
you were involved with Ground Zero and everything that went down there. The iconic photo of you hanging the American flag up with a few other brothers on the traffic signal.
Yep.
And that photo circulated all over the world. When we were sitting, let me throw it back this way, because Corley Moore runs Firehouse Vigilance, which I know you know, the weekly scrap podcast, and Corley's a dear friend of mine. And we were all in Texas together last year, and we all went out to
Right.
dinner, and I ended up sitting next to you, and Corley and his wife were across from you, with a bunch of other people. That was one of the most memorable moments I've had at any conference, was because I sat there and I just dropped little things all night long to keep you talking. And it was so much fun. And I talk about that with Corley all the time. I said, what a great night, because you were very open and honest about your job and the events that you've been a part of. And, you know, all those things that have really shaped you into who you are and what you've become. And so I guess that's my question to you. With such a colorful career, what has that done to you as a person? I mean, you are a firefighter. You are the epitome of what a firefighter is, about service, loyalty, putting others first. I mean, this really is what I envision and what I've seen of who you are. What has the fire service done for you?
Oh my God. Well, first off, it gave me everything I have.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave me everything. I got to live my dream. Okay, I became a volunteer firefighter in 1970, 73. Yeah, yeah, January of 74. January of 74, I
Okay.
became a volunteer firefighter. Okay, and then I found out you could get paid to do this. And in 85, I became a career firefighter. Um, you know, I have a great life with my wife. We've been together 42 years. Um, I have two beautiful kids. The fire service has taken care of me. It's given me more than I can ever give it back.
Yeah.
And it's introduced me to people all over the world, friends. I mean, I have my buddy Phil in Australia, who I talk to every other week in Australia, that we met through the fire service.
Yeah.
I have my buddy, guys like you, Steve,
Mhm.
Kevin Yost, all over, Dave Gallagher.
Sure.
I've met all of these people through the fire service. Mike Champo. I can go on and on and on. Mike
Right.
Galliano. And the friendships that I have received, the people who are a part of my life, it's just been amazing. It's amazing to me how much it has given me and how much I have been blessed by what it was. I'm just a dumb kid from New York who just got lucky, fell in with the right group of people who trained me right and helped me become the man I am. And I mean, I have to give props to my dad, who was a World War II veteran, who helped shape me into the man I am. But very honestly, in the fire service, all of those brothers and sisters who came across my path, each of them affected me in a way. Some for the good, most for the good,
Yeah.
some for the bad,
Right.
some for the bad. But everybody can be an example for the good or the bad. Okay. And you take a little bit of everybody, what you like, what you don't, and you put them together, and it helps mold who you are. And those are the things that change your career. Who were your heroes? Who were the people you wanted to be like? I think about my first captain, who I loved. He was like a father figure to me.
Yeah.
And he was just a man who walked the walk and talked the talk. But he didn't talk the talk until he walked that walk. He
Yeah.
did everything. And he taught me that. We'd go out training, and we would be doing something, and we'd say, "Okay, Cap, I think we got it." No, 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 I haven't done my turn yet. And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, if you guys have to use this rope, I have to use this rope." And when I was a captain, I remember we were going to do bailouts in a fire situation with the Hornets after Black Sunday. And one of the guys training said, "Hey, Cap, you're one of the senior captains. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do this." I said, "If my guys have to do this, I have to do it,
Yeah.
because I have to be able to tell them that I can do this if we get jammed up." And I'm not going to be the first one out the window. I'm going to be the last one out the window.
Right. Right.
And that it gives you, the fire service gives back so much if you are willing to get involved and buy into, it's not just a job.
And that's, I mean, to be honest, that's why I asked you this question, because so many people listen to this podcast from all different walks of life in the fire service. And, to hear somebody that is, I put you on the big stage. I mean, the accomplishments and who you've become and who you are and the influence you have on the American Fire Service, it is so valuable for all of us to hear how grateful you are. But it should be said that, there's a lot of people that help shape who you were, but it also takes yourself. And I think we all sell ourselves a little bit short on that message too, in that it comes to work ethics and values and morals, which are certainly learned from, others around us and the people we choose to surround ourselves with, but also it's inherently within. And I think, Mike, that your message and what you just said for the last few minutes there is beautiful, because it makes people that are falling out of love with the fire service to maybe rethink, start surrounding themselves with different people, put themselves in a different company, stay in love with it, because the reward is 100-fold versus, what it just gives you. It's just, it's powerful.
And very honestly, if you have fallen out of love with the fire service, self-reflect.
Yeah.
Figure out why.
Yes.
Is it you? Or is it someone in your department? Maybe it's someone above you. But maybe you have to be the bigger person in the room and choose to forgive or move on. Okay? And do the right thing. There were people who have done the things I thought were wrong in my career. And we have come to arguments, to fights in the firehouse. And once we get there, no matter who, we're wrong. Once it gets to that, we have to communicate and figure out what's going on, why we are having these things. And that's all of that stuff. And I love that stuff. I mean, Crucial Conversations is one of my favorite books. Reading it about why we do these things, why we get into this situation. And I still have gotten emotional. And again, you can think or you can fight, but you can't do both at the same time. You can't do both at the same time. Okay, so you have to decide what you want to do, how you want to do this, and be that person who can do these things.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the pause, Mike. I'm writing that down. You can think or you can fight, but you can't do both at the same time, right?
Yep. Because you can't. It's that emotion. We are humans, and we have that gas between fight and flight, between thinking and going into that fight or flight stage. We have that gap.
Yes.
Okay. And if we don't use that gap to think, we go right to fight, we're not going to be thinking. Okay. And again, I've been there and I've done it. And I try to get better at it, because these are some of the flaws in my personality.
And it should be said, like, this is the second time that I've heard you say that quote. So I wanted to write it down. The first time I heard it was in Texas when This House Rocks, Mike Gaglione or Gagliano and yourself, you guys do a class together. Mike's in Seattle fireman. Is he retired? Did he retire?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yep. He retired as a captain, a lot of 5.
Got it. So I had the privilege just to sit back and listen to you guys do. I think it was an abbreviated version of that class. But I had heard you say that once before, and I'm glad it just came back up, because I was trying to remember that quote, because I think it's a powerful quote. And you guys put together a fantastic class. And maybe just as we start to wrap up a little bit, right? We're about an hour in, and I don't want to hold you all morning here, but you are doing and teaching and lecturing and doing hands-on. And This House Rocks is just one of a few different classes that I think you offer. And so on. And so what the training aspect, so important, and you still find yourself learning every day. I know you talk about how much you like to read. and you read for knowledge, right? Which I think is important. As for the training aspect of it, how can people find you if they want to, they'd love to pursue and hear more of your message, or maybe the class This House Rocks, which I would let everyone know that it's certainly a fantastic class, and to inquire about that, I think it's beneficial for anybody. But talk to me about just a little bit about the training aspect, how much you love it, and what you have coming up in the future, and so on.
Okay. But I want to just say one thing,
please,
about reading. And I believe that readers are leaders, but I read a lot for knowledge, but I also read for fun. And if you don't read for fun, enjoyment reading, and you just read for knowledge, you're going to lose the desire to read. You should read both. And I try to stagger what I read. And I'm reading right now a Western about Texas. That's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one I'll read is for knowledge. But I switch them up because you have to keep enjoying it. Talking about the training, I think the training is so vital to people. I've got a couple of things working in the future. I'm going to be down in North Florida at the North Florida Fire Expo in, I think, early March. I'm going to be doing a couple of other things. I'm not sure when yet, but of course I'll be at FDIC again this year. But the training is something that everyone should be involved in. Okay, you should get involved. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can find me at captaindugan.com. You can also find me on Facebook as Captain Dugan and Mike Dugan, because I have in my personal, the Mike Dugan, or Michael Dugan, I guess it is. But you can only have 5,000 friends, then you got to move public. So I've got a personal page and a public page.
Yes.
But you can find me there. But it's, my stuff is out there. It's available. And my email is simple. I am old school. My email is Dugan, Dugan, fire at AOL. That's how old I am. I still have my AOL.
I still have one as well, Cap. So no worries there. No worries at all. But listen, I just wanted to say thank you. This past hour has been so much fun for me. I've been wanting to chat with you formally like this for quite a long time, and I know we've talked about it a few times, trying to get together and so on. And I'd love to have you back on, because there's 1,000 things we could go down, and the storytelling and the experiences. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to talk to you about riding in the phone booth on the rear mounts. I mean, there's so many things.
Oh, yeah. There's so much stuff. Yep.
Oh, for sure. And, and so for all of that, it's just, it's important to me. And it's super important that we get and share your message. And that's kind of what National Fire Radio was built on when we first started, was sharing the stories of the senior man, if you will. And, the next generation has, as you eloquently put it in your Lifetime Achievement Award speech at FDIC this past year, what you had said was very simply in passing that torch on. And that's what National Fire Radio is trying to do. If we can share a few of Captain Mike Dugan's stories and they resonate and somebody gets something out of it, we've done our part. And I think today, this past hour with you has just been wonderful. And I think there was a lot of great little nuggets in there for people to digest and listen to. And I just thank you for your morning hour, an hour this morning with you. Certainly made my day better. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. And to all of the folks out there listening, thank you all for listening, and God bless you. And just remember, stay passionate about what we do. As Captain Patty Brown said, you can never train enough for a job that could kill you.
Yeah. And with that, thank you, Cap. I appreciate your time this morning. Let me sign off, and then I'm going to come right back. So don't hang up, okay? Hang right there with me. Great. Everyone, thank you again for tuning in to the National Fire Radio podcast. Today was just a special treat. Captain Mike Dugan, retired out of the FDNY, highly decorated firefighter, captain, retired as a captain, and just absolutely loves and cherishes the American Fire Service, which we all should. So thanks for tuning in. take this episode, take it to the firehouse. When you break bread tonight with your brothers and sisters, talk about the job. Talk about this episode. Share a story. Talk about the job, because as we talk about the job, we're making the job better. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. For myself and Captain Mike Dugan, National Fire Radio.